Let's play some god fucking damn chess. Street whore. Come on, suck my slut. You slut from China? Suck my slut. You suck my dick, bitch. Let's try this motherfucking shit. God fucking sucking, dick sucking, fucking damn it. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my motherfucking cock. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick.
The past 150 years of archaeology in the Near East have revolutionized our understanding of the Bible.
Come on, stop the damn game, you
ancient
slut.
Israelite culture.
You suck
we
my
now
dick.
know
You suck
that
my
several
dick,
of the
bitch.
foundational myths in Genesis,
Come on, you goddamn
particularly the creation of the
slut.
world
Shut
and Noah's Ark,
Come, you
were
goddamn son of a
predated
goddamn
by
bitch,
Sumerian,
goddamn it.
Assyrian, Babylonian,
Come on, you
and
goddamn
Canaanite
fucking
versions
slant-out
of
slut
those
from
same
China.
stories. The parallels between the flood narrative of Genesis and the flood myths found in Eridu Genesis, Atrahasis, and the Epic of Gilgamesh are particularly striking, leaving no room for doubt
Come on, you
that
fucking
the scribes who
slant-out
penned
slut.
the Bible were indebted to the rich literary heritage of ancient
Come on, you goddamn
Mesopotamia.
motherfucker.
Finding
Come on, you
Near Eastern
goddamn
parallels to the
Come on,
story
you
of the Garden of
goddamn
Eden,
motherfucker.
however, has always been
Come on,
more
you
difficult.
goddamn motherfucker.
What ancient sources of
Come on, you
inspiration
goddamn
lie behind this
motherfucker.
tale? Did the so-called Yahwist writer
Suck my
invent the characters
motherfucking
of
dick,
Adam and
bitch.
Eve himself? Or did he borrow them from earlier traditions?
Suck my dick,
And how did
bitch.
a snake manage to infiltrate the
Come on,
holy
you
garden
goddamn dick
and
sucker from
upset
China.
God's plans? In this documentary,
Come on, you
we
fucking
turn our
dick
sights to
sucker.
one of the Bible's most foundational stories
Suck my dick,
and
bitch.
its origins in the culture
You suck
and
my
literature
dick,
of
bitch.
ancient Canaan and Mesopotamia. The sacred garden, the tree of life,
You
the
suck my
creation of
dick, bitch.
humans, and many
You
other
suck
elements
my
of the
dick,
Eden
bitch.
story
You suck my
have well-known
dick, bitch. You
antecedents
suck my
in the
dick,
myths
bitch.
and
You
art
suck
of
my
Israel's
dick,
older neighbors.
You
What's
suck
more,
my dick, bitch.
according to a theory by Old Testament scholars Mario Korpel and
You
Johannes C.
stupid
de
motherfucker, you
Moor,
could have eared my
even the
goddamn
story of
son
Adam
goddamn
and the
bitch.
serpent has a direct precursor in an obscure text from ancient Ugarit.
Come on,
if
you
correct,
dick sucker.
Their theory would be a major step forward in tracing the
Move,
beliefs
fucking dick
and
sucker.
myth that shaped the Bible. At the time
Move,
when
fucking
Yahweh God
goddamn
made the earth and the heaven,
Shit-sucking
there was
fucking
as yet
dick sucker.
no wild bush on the earth, nor had
Suck
any
my
wild
dick,
plant
bitch.
yet sprung up, for Yahweh God had not sent rain on the earth,
Suck my
nor
dick,
was
bitch.
there any man to till the soil.
Suck
However,
my dick,
a
bitch.
flood was rising from the earth and watering all the surface of the soil. Yahweh God planted a garden in Eden, which is in the east, and there he put
Yep,
the man he
I
had
was fucking
fashioned.
stupid as fuck.
The ancient Sumerian
God
myth
fucking
of
damn
Enki
it.
and Ninhursag recounts a story about the ancient land of Dilmun
Holy goddamn
before it was
fuck.
inhabited. Virginal is
Suck my
Dilmun
dick,
land.
bitch.
Pristine is Dilmun land. In Dilmun, a raven was not yet cawing,
Suck my
a
dick,
partridge not cackling, a lion did not yet slay, a wolf
Suck
did
my
not carry
fucking
off lambs. Ninsikala said to her father Enki, "A city you gave, a city that has no river? You gave me a city that has no
bitch.
field,
Suck my fucking
glebe, or
dick.
furrow?" Enki answered Ninsikala, "From the mouth of the running underground waters, fresh waters shall run out of the ground for you." At the beginning of the story, Dilmun is a parched desert devoid of
Suck
plants
my
and
dick,
animals.
bitch.
So the goddess of Dilmun, Ninsikala, asks the high god Enki to supply water. Enki hears her plea and causes springs of fresh
Suck my
water to appear
motherfucking
on
dick,
Dilmun,
bitch.
making it inhabitable. Enki also fertilizes the land with his semen so it can bring forth plants.
Suck my dick,
This is
bitch.
reminiscent of the opening verses of Genesis 2, in which the newly
God
created
fucking
land
damn it.
is devoid of plants
God
until
fucking
a spring
damn
is
it.
produced to water the ground.
God fucking
Yahweh
damn
then
it.
plants a garden in the east,
God
causing
fucking
the
damn it.
soil to bring forth trees of every kind. Dilmun was apparently a real place, and most scholars believe it referred to the island of Bahrain,
God fucking.
which was home to a rich commercial civilization for
fucking damn it.
thousands of years.
God
The
fucking.
myth of
damn
Enki
it.
and Ninhursag may have originated as an etiology
Suck my
for this
dick,
wealthy
bitch.
kingdom and its abundant freshwater springs. However, in these texts, we also see the development
God
of
fucking.
a
damn
mythical Dilmun, which is not the island of Bahrain
God fucking.
at all,
damn it.
but a mountain in the east where the
Suck
sun
my dick,
rises.
bitch.
Eridu Genesis, the Sumerian flood myth,
Suck my
states
dick,
that the
bitch.
flood hero
Suck my dick,
Ziud-Sudra, the Sumerian Noah, was taken there to enjoy
Suck
eternal
my
life.
dick, bitch.
Ziud-Sudra,
Suck my
being
dick,
king,
bitch.
stepped up before
Suck-
An
suck
and
my
Enlil,
dick, bitch.
kissing the ground. And An and Enlil, after honoring him, were
Suck.
granting him life.
Suck my
Like a
dick,
god's,
bitch.
were making lasting breath of life. Like a god's descend into him. That day they made Ziud-Sudra, preserver, as king, of the name of the small animals and the seed
Suck
of
my
mankind.
dick, bitch.
Live toward the
Suck
east
my
over the
dick,
mountains in Mount Dilmun.
Suck my dick,
The
bitch.
later Akkadian epic of Gilgamesh
Suck my
confirms
dick,
that the
bitch.
flood hero is taken to live in a
Suck
mythical
my
land
dick, bitch.
beyond the mountains, at the source of the Tigris
Suck
and
my
Euphrates
dick, bitch.
rivers.
Suck my
Even though the
dick.
name
Man,
Dilmun
this is
is no
boring.
longer used,
You suck
to reach
my
this
motherfucking
land,
dick, bitch.
Gilgamesh must accomplish feats impossible for ordinary mortals,
God fucking
traveling
damn it.
beyond even where the sun rises
Holy
to
Ghost.
the very edge of the world. Could this Mount
Suck my
Dilmun
dick, bitch.
be a
Suck my
precursor
dick,
to the
bitch.
biblical Eden? The scholarly position on this is
Suck my
complicated.
dick, bitch.
Some experts, like Dina Katz and Bernard Bato, argue
Suck
that
my
Dilmun
dick.
is a
Kiss
weak
that fucking
parallel to
whore
the
goodbye.
Garden of Eden. Bato says, there is no indication that humans, even primeval humans, ever
Suck my
lived there,
fucking
with the
dick.
lone exception of the divinized flood hero,
Suck my
an
dick,
exception
bitch.
which proves the rule. Arthur
Suck-
and Alina
suck my
George, on
dick,
the other
bitch.
hand, believe that several elements of the Eden story have direct parallels in the Dilmun myth.
fucking Christ.
We do not argue that Jay
Christ the
specifically
fuck.
utilized or even knew of all the above-mentioned Dilmun myths when composing the Eden story. But it is apparent
Suck
that
my
these
fuck-
motifs
God damn
existed
it.
throughout the biblical world. Much of it was archetypal.
Fucking Christ.
It appears that Eden,
Christ
like the
or
mythical
fuck.
Dilmun, is also located on a mountain. In Genesis 2, 4 rivers originate in
Christ
Eden:
or fuck.
the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. The headwaters of
Christ
rivers
or fuck.
are usually found in
Christ or
mountains
fuck.
because rivers obviously flow downhill. Furthermore, Ezekiel 28,
Christ or
which
fuck.
preserves a separate and possibly earlier Eden myth,
Christ or
explicitly
fuck.
refers to Eden as a garden on the holy mountain of God. Corporal
Christ
and
or
Demore
fuck.
also argue in their book
Christ
that
or
it is
fuck.
logical to locate Eden near the
Christ or
site where
fuck.
Noah's Ark was stranded, in the mountains of Ararat, far to the northeast of Israel. Even
Christ or
if
fuck.
the Sumerian myth of Dilmun lies in the background of Eden,
Christ or
there
fuck.
might also be parallels closer to home. In the tablets of Ugarit, an important
Christ
Canaanite
the
city-state,
fuck.
predated the Israelites, we find references to a
Christ
sacred
or
mountain
fuck.
with a vineyard
You
where
just
El
fucked up, son
or
of a bitch.
Elu, the high god of the Canaanite pantheon,
Suck
resided.
my dick, bitch. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my
And
dick.
Yahweh Elohim made to grow out of the ground
Suck my
all
dick,
trees
bitch.
pleasant to look at and good for food, and the tree of life in the middle of the garden,
Suck my
the
dick,
tree
bitch.
of knowing good and evil. The tree of life motif is well
I
known
fuck
from
his
Mesopotamian art.
Ho!
Assyrian
You suck my
reliefs and
dick,
cylinder
bitch.
seals
Suck my
frequently
fucking
show
dick,
a
bitch.
sacred
You
tree,
suck my dick, bitch.
typically a date palm, being guarded by Apkalus, or hybrid
Suck
birdmen.
my dick, bitch.
According to Helga S. Quamvig, the Assyrian tree of life represented the divine world order maintained by the king.
No!
Sacred trees were also a common aspect
of
religious life in ancient Canaan.
Joseph Stalin, I'm talking
Most
about
rural
Stalin.
religious activity
Bitch.
took place at sanctuaries called
Now buck
bamot,
up and bring that
or
damn
high
right
places, which are mentioned frequently in the
here.
Bible.
You suck my
These
dick,
were
bitch.
typically situated near prominent trees on hills or high ground.
You
Eating
suck
the
my
fruit
dick,
of a
bitch.
sacred tree was a direct way of experiencing the divine. Outside of
fuck?
Genesis, sacred
The
trees
fuck
are
is that
often
shit?
associated with the goddess Asherah,
Suck my
who
dick,
also
bitch.
went by the name Elat, the feminine
Suck my
version of El.
motherfucking dick, bitch.
The historical books of the Old Testament imply
Suck
that
my
Asherah
dick,
veneration was practiced in
Suck
Judah
my dick.
and even at the Jerusalem temple without interruption until the reforms of Hezekiah and Josiah. Archaeological finds from various sites in Judah and Israel confirm
my fucking
her
dick,
popularity
bitch.
and her association with a sacred tree. It was
Suck
also
my
the
dick,
case
bitch.
in Anatolian and Syrian art that the storm god
Suck
Hadad
my
often
dick.
carried a tree or a tree branch, and this became a divine symbol of the god's fertility as the one who caused the rains by which the earth's plants and trees were nourished. Over
Suck my
time, the
dick,
sacred
bitch.
tree by itself came to represent Hadad. Another version of the Tree of Life that is surely connected to the Eden story comes from Greek mythology.
Suck
According
my
to
dick, bitch.
numerous Greek authors, there were several nymphs called
Suck
the
my dick,
Hesperides,
bitch. Suck my
tended a
dick,
garden
bitch.
at the western edge
Suck
of the
my
world.
dick, bitch.
This garden belonged to the goddess Hera and contained a sacred tree that produced magical fruit made of gold. To prevent the Hesperides from picking the fruit themselves, Hera placed a multi-headed serpent named Ladon.
God,
The name Ladon almost
Jesus
certainly
goddamn
comes
fucking
from
goddamn
Lotan,
Christ.
the seven-headed chaos serpent
God
of
damn it.
Canaanite, Syrian, and
Jesus
Hittite
fucking
tradition.
Christ.
This serpent appears in numerous
Suck
ancient Bible
my
passages
dick, bitch.
as Leviathan, a multi-headed sea dragon vanquished by Yahweh at
Suck
creation.
my dick.
Exactly how all these dots connect, however, is difficult to determine. Did the
Man, I'm sick
Yahwist
as hell of this
author know
fucking
both
shit.
the Canaanite sacred garden tradition and the Greek Hesperides tradition?
Now, fuck, God
Or
damn it.
did both the Israelites and the Greeks inherit the garden,
God
tree,
damn it.
fruit, and serpent motifs
Suck my
from a Near
dick.
Eastern source? These questions
Suck
remain
my
unanswered
dick.
for now, but we will have more to say about the serpent further on. What is distinctive
Suck
about
my
most
dick,
examples of sacred gardens and trees is their link to the earth goddess. The Eden story, however, was written by scribes of a religion that venerated primarily
Suck my
Yahweh,
dick, bitch.
and as such, it features no goddess. Nevertheless, aspects of the
Suck
earlier
my-
goddess mythology
Suck
might
my
still
dick,
remain,
bitch.
as we shall see.
Suck my
Despite
dick.
the ubiquitous appearance of divine trees with a variety of symbolic
Suck
meanings
my
in
dick.
the ancient Near East, one of the biggest challenges in finding a direct predecessor to
Suck
the
my
Eden story
dick, bitch.
is the unique function of the two trees. The Tree of Life, which confers immortality, and the Tree of Knowledge, which, as its name implies,
damn it.
confers knowledge. However,
Suck my
other well-known
dick, bitch.
myths provide a suitable background for these elements. The ancient Mesopotamian myth of Adapa tells a story in which Adapa, the king of Eridu, is brought before the court of heaven and offered the food and drink of the gods, which will make
Suck
him
my
immortal.
dick, bitch.
The god Ea, however, uses trickery to convince
Suck my
Adapa
dick.
to refuse the offer and remain Ea's mortal servant on Earth. The main innovation required by the Yahwist author was to combine the
Suck my
idea
fucking
of a sacred fruit-bearing tree
God damn
with
it.
the idea that the food of the gods granted immortality in those who ate it. Similarly, the tree
God
of knowledge,
damn it.
from which Eve eats, is reminiscent of Pandora's so-called box, actually a jar. Like Eve, Pandora was the first woman to be created
God
in Greek
fucking
mythology.
damn it. Holy
And
Ghost.
like Eve, Pandora brought sorrow and calamity into the world by opening the forbidden jar.
Holy Ghost.
The Tree of Knowledge, in a sense, is just Pandora's jar
Suck
in another
my
form.
dick. Fucking cunt. This is boring. This is boring as fuck. This is boring as fuck. Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch. Now fuck up and overlook this fucking shit. Suck my dick, bitch.
Atheism gives you no ground for trusting the rationality you need to do science. So what atheism does is not only shoot
Suck
you
my
in the foot
goddamn
and that's
motherfucking
painful, it
dick,
shoots you in
bitch.
the head and that's fatal.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, maybe it is stupid, but it's also dumb.
Hello,
You
everyone.
goddamn son of
I'm Professor
goddamn-
Blink.
goddamn-
I respond to various
goddamn-
theological and
goddamn
ideological
bitch,
questions and
goddamn
claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the
goddamn
opposite viewpoint
goddamn
and help to
bitch.
balance the conversation. Today, we're going to be
Goddamn
responding
motherfucker.
to who is considered to be one of the intellectuals of Christian apologetics, Professor John Lennox. And in that regard, the bar is already set so
Suck
low
my
it's
motherfucking
practically
dick,
buried.
bitch.
What with one of the few other so-called intellectuals of apologetics being
Suck
Low
my
Bar Bill.
dick, bitch.
If there is just one chance in a
Suck
million
my
that this is
dick.
true, it's worth believing. And so my attitude toward this is just the opposite of Kyle's. Far from raising the bar or the epistemic standard that
Come on, you
Christianity
goddamn
is
son of
made
a
to be
bitch.
believed, I
Suck
lower
my
it.
dick,
And
bitch.
since the good professor brought up being shot in the foot a minute ago,
Suck my
his
dick.
credibility is further shot in the foot by way of where he's speaking to us from today,
Suck my
which is
fucking
from Growing
dick.
Pains alum Kirk Cameron's show on the Bible Network. Kirk Cameron not only being a notorious right-wing buffoon, but also for this particular anti-scientific gem.
But I want you to keep your eye out for this, because this is what evolutionists have been searching for hundreds of
told you,
years. All right, and if you find one of these, you could become rich and famous. So here's some transitional forms. This is called
What
the
a
crocodile.
crock
Can
of
you see
shit.
this?
And so, just by going on to Kirk's program, Professor Lennox is making himself look bad when trying to make what he's claiming is a substantive criticism of secular science and a sound rationalization for a belief in God.
Suck my
But
dick,
let's look
bitch.
past all of that, because even a broken clock
I
can
gotta
be right
shit
twice
my
a day,
pants.
and I don't want to get into an ad hominem by saying that he shouldn't be listened to just
just shit
because
in
of
my
the company he
pants.
keeps or the platforms he appears on. So let's hear John out and see what kind of
I
points
just
he's
shit
come
in
up
my
with today.
pants.
But before we get to that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when
Come
new
on,
content comes out.
dickhole.
Check out my social media, including my Patreon and Twitter, all linked in the description.
Stupid,
And of course, like this
stupid
particular
fucker.
video, maybe pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm, that majestic, microprocessor-fueled misanthrope masquerading as a mild-mannered automaton, and keeping my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video.
John, I heard that you wrote a little book, and it's being read around the world, called Can Science Explain Everything?
God
Why is
damn
everyone
it.
talking about this book so much?
It addresses a
God
feeling
fucking
that's
damn it.
very widespread, that science
God
has been
damn it.
so successful. Look at the technology it has produced. Surely in the end it
God
will answer
damn it.
everything.
I don't think it's fair to say that the idea is that science will one day explain everything. Frankly, I think it's pretty likely that humankind will no longer exist far before we get to the point of having explained the entirety of all that there is through science. Either because we die out for one of 100 reasons, or if we do manage to make it, we evolve past the point of being Homo sapiens anymore, and are too busy having salamander babies to engage in rigorous scientific inquiry.
You stupid motherfucker. Suck my dick, bitch.
It's them. But I have to admit, I'm not sure which one is the captain.
So it's not that science will one day explain everything, it's that everything is explainable through science.
Suck my dick, bitch.
And there's no reason to think that that is not the case, and every reason to think that it is. I mean, this is the very idea behind the God of the Gaps. Once upon a time, science was still fresh and new and couldn't explain very much. So it was easy to take a lot of that and insist that it was all because of unexplainable magic from God. People thought that the sun and the moon and basically all the movement of every celestial body was unexplainable magic from God. They thought that about life and death. They thought that about sickness and birth and how our minds and personalities work and are formed. People thought it was all unknowable mysteries of the divine. But as time went on, and more of these things that everyone insisted couldn't be known through science became known through science, the gaps in our knowledge in which God and his unexplainable magic could dwell became ever smaller. And there's no reason to think that that will not continue as we move further into the future and more of the unknowns become known. So it's very apt to say that everything that exists in the physical universe, which is the only realm we know of to exist in the first place, is knowable through science.
Suck my dick,
and
bitch.
Push religion right out to the side, and especially any ideas of God. And I want to combat that. And I want to say that science is powerful, I love it, but it's limited. And it's easy to see that it's limited. There's a very brilliant Nobel Prize winner called Sir Peter Medawar, and he once said it's so easy to see that science is limited because it cannot even answer the questions of a child. Where do I come from? Where am I going? And what is the meaning of life?
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that science is ill-equipped to answer questions of philosophy? Get right the hell out of town! I mean, that first one is actually pretty easy for science to answer. Where did I come from? Well, my parents did the horizontal mambo, Daddy's tadpole melded with Mommy's egg, bingo bango, 9 months of this bun cooking in the oven, and they were graced with a bouncing baby cycloptic tribble. And I'm fairly certain the same holds true for John, for Kirk, and for literally everyone else that lives and has ever lived. Yes, that includes Jesus as well. But the questions of where am I going and what is the meaning of life are existential questions of philosophy. They are not attempts to understand what is, which is what science is actually for. They're questions about what should be. What should be my goals? What should be my path? What should be my take on the meaning of life? These are things that are going to be personal and unique to the individual, and about as unscientific as what is my favorite food or why do I still occasionally get the thong song stuck in my head after all of these years. This isn't a limitation of science any more than a car not being able to calculate pi to 1,000 places is a limitation of your car. That's not what it's for, so stop trying to say that it's deficient for not being able to do so.
Stupid motherfucker.
And he hit on something very important there. The late Lord Sachs, who was the chief rabbi in the United Kingdom and Commonwealth, wrote a book once. He was a brilliant philosopher. And he said something roughly like this. Science takes things apart to see how they work. Religion puts them together to see what they need.
Except that it doesn't, does it? Religion makes things up to attempt to give some kind of existential meaning to things. Or often just to compel behavior. Once upon a time, modesty was enforced in Japan by way of the religious belief that if you ever showed your belly button in public, Raijin, the god of thunder and wind, would take it away from you. What was the religion attempting to figure out there? Because I guarantee you, no one in Japan ever showed their navel and woke up the next morning to find it missing. Or what about all of the creation myths from the various religions? All of them just trying to figure out where the Earth came from? What sort of things did they end up coming up with? That the Earth was formed out of the body of a dead frost giant. Or the Earth is the form of a god itself, birthed when two greater gods got busy with each other.
God damn it.
Or a cosmic egg broke open and a god came out of it that just created the Earth on a whim afterward.
Suck my dick.
Now, is there any reason to believe any of this is true? Or was it just kind of made up as a post hoc rationalization for what very well might have been just a natural process with no intentionality behind it? Is there any reason to think that throwing salt over your shoulder wards off evil spirits? Or that there was ever evil spirits there to begin with? Or how about more close to home in modern day theology, any reason to think prayer has any tangible benefits? Because there doesn't seem to be. Is religion really the attempt to put things together to derive meaning? Or is it more making shit up to feign reason, but is really just nonsense to placate the masses and assuage one's own insecurity about the fear of the unknown?
And the point is that science can answer many questions, but it cannot answer the questions of meaning.
That's because meaning is a personal takeaway from something tangible. It isn't something scientifically explorable unless you want to get into neurology and psychology and figure out how a person reaches the conclusions about meaning that they do. But no, in general, meaning is self-derived. If you see someone getting hit by a car, the meaning that is taken from that is likely going to be different for each of the witnesses. One might take that to mean that we should live more in the moment because you never know when your number's going to be up. Another might take it to mean that bad things can happen to good people for no apparent reason, therefore everything is random chaos. Still another could take it to mean that God has a plan and everything is in accordance with that plan, including vehicular manslaughter. And therefore the person getting hit by the car is evidence of design and divine. While still another witness could just take it to mean you should make sure you look both ways before stepping into the street. Meaning is not an objective, self-existent thing. It's a matter of human perspective and opinion, not scientifically verifiable fact.
I often illustrate this by telling a story about a fictitious Aunt Matilda who's baked a beautiful cake, as he says, "Now, just before you go, please tell me why the cake was made." None of them can tell her why. Only she can if she reveals it to them.
But if various faith leaders were there and asked why the cake was made, one might say that it was because a great half-bird, half-man being named Roll-a-Tutu sneezed it out when a bull god called Krakathon tickled its beak with a magic feather. And another might say the infinite sky fell in love with the eternal earth and they had sex and gave birth to the almighty pastry king, who poofed that cake into existence from nothing. Then another might say that the all-powerful one true God impregnated a girl with his son, who was in fact himself, and she gave birth to the great baker, who would redeem the confections of all mankind, who died upon the pastry oven to sanctify all the cakes to come for the rest of time until the great pastry rapture comes. And all of them would be wrong because they were just making shit up. But then, that's religion for you. What would they be doing if they weren't making up stories about nonsense to give false meaning to mundane natural occurrences like that a woman baked a freaking cake?
Holy shit!
Now this is a very simple analogy, but it's hugely important because it's the same with the universe. We can examine what it's made of and get brilliant scientific theories, but to understand why it was made and why we were.
Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick, suck my dick, suck my dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick, bitch.
Most atheists hold to some form of biological evolution. Many Big Bang models would assert that the universe is billions of years old and that all came together from one singularity, after which it started evolving over time. I will be logically proving why this cannot be the case. And I will also be providing reasons why that even though there's enough evidence that God exists, people still reject him.
Hello, everyone.
Forget about that poem. Forget about that
very theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation.
You know,
I sometimes get a little trepidatious when it comes to the idea of responding to apologists who look as though they're barely out of middle school. I mean, we've all said some stupid things in our youth, and how many of us, if given the opportunity to go back in time and speak to our teenage selves, would smack the taste out of our own mouth for putting such garbage ideas into the world. And it's even worse for the current teenage generation, as when they put their bad ideas on display digitally, it reaches a much wider audience, and it's on the internet forever, than it did back in my day, when if I said stupid things while hanging out in my high school parking lot, it didn't go beyond the other ears in that parking lot. So I'm not aiming any of this video at the messenger, this young man who runs a channel called Repent and Believe. That being said, bad ideas and flawed reasoning are, well, bad ideas and flawed reasoning, and it should be confronted wherever it arises, regardless of from whence it came. Because even when this guy gets older, even if he's no longer making these kinds of claims, there will still be many other people who are. So let's deal with the arguments and the claims rather than the person they're coming from, and see what we have in here that proves, as the title of the video claims, that atheism is a fraud. But before we get into that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out.
Would you please
check out my social media, including my Patreon and Twitter, all linked in the description. And of course, like this video, pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm, that majestic matriarch of mechanical magnificence, magnifying the mission of maligning misinformation. May it keep my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video.
Firstly, claiming that the universe came from a singularity is illogical, since a singularity can create nothing at all, since it is a singularity and is not intelligent.
Since when does something necessarily need to be intelligent in order to create something? I mean, the sun, in effect, created all of the planets and the celestial bodies in the solar system by ejecting all of the matter that would eventually conglomerate into said celestial bodies. But stars aren't intelligent. An asteroid collides with a planet, forming a crater, eventually filling with water and becoming a lake. Neither the asteroid or the planet that it hit are intelligent, even though they created a lake. A tree creates a nut, which falls to the ground, takes root, and becomes another tree. Neither the original tree, nor the ground it seeded in, nor the nutrients and sunlight that spurred its growth are intelligent.
Suck my dick.
Natural processes devoid of intelligence create things all the time. Now, the typical theistic response to that is, no, non-intelligent things never create anything. That in fact it's God creating all of those things. But that's an assertion, and an unproven one at that. You can't use one unproven assertion, that God is behind everything, in order to prove another assertion, that intelligence is required to create anything. Furthermore, the Big Bang occurring out of a primordial singularity is not indicating that the singularity created anything. The idea is that the singularity was a point of immense energy that rapidly expanded. That energy then expanded outward, eventually becoming matter, which is a natural process. Energy can become matter under the right conditions, eventually becoming all the matter in the universe. So the singularity didn't create the universe so much as it became the universe through natural processes. Just like an acorn does not create a tree, it becomes one through natural processes.
This singularity also had to be infinite if it was what was in the beginning, which is much less logical than saying God is infinite.
Why? No, seriously. You're going to have to explain that point. Why would the singularity need to be infinite in order to become the universe? The universe isn't infinite, so why would the singularity that it expanded out of need to be infinite? Or, wait, are you talking infinite or eternal?
Stupid motherfucker.
Because those are two different things, and you aren't explaining what you mean. Seriously, this guy just ends it there and jumps to his next point. Infinite typically means limitless or endless in space, extent, or size. Clearly the singularity wasn't limitless in size, or else the notion of it expanding in the form of the Big Bang would be impossible. That which is without limit in size can't possibly get bigger. So insisting that the singularity would need to be infinitely large makes no sense. I think this guy must mean infinite in time, which would be eternal. Well, it is eternal, in a sense, because the prevailing model has time coming into existence along with space in the advent of the Big Bang. This is why physicists typically say space-time, because space and time are inextricably linked and are more or less different aspects of the same thing. So the universe, and by extension the singularity that it sprang out of, have existed for all of time. For as long as time has existed, the universe and its singularity precursor have existed too.
If you claim that the singularity is intelligent, then you would not be an atheist, because the singularity would be your higher power. But if you claim that it is not, then you would be saying that something that created everything was unintelligent.
What we have here is a false dilemma fallacy. This is when only two choices are presented, yet more exist, or a spectrum of possible choices exist between two extremes. False dilemmas are usually characterized by either this or that language, but can also be characterized by omissions of choices. You only have two choices, atheists. Either you're saying that the singularity was intelligent and therefore a god, or you're saying that the singularity was unintelligent and therefore an unintelligent thing intelligently created everything. No. I'm not saying either of those things. I mean, for one, even though the evidence is pretty conclusive and points to the Big Bang, an atheist doesn't have to accept Big Bang cosmology at all. So there is that. But I do, and I'm confident most people in general do, even theists. But I would say that the singularity was unintelligent and didn't create anything, but that it existed in an unstable state, which caused it to naturally collapse into the rapid expansion that we call the Big Bang, which then naturally resulted in the conditions being right for energy to become matter, and the natural forces of the universe, plus 13.8 billion years of time, resulted in everything we see around us.
Now, with all that put together, this is why if you claim that singularity created the universe and you still want to be an atheist, then you would have to claim that everything came from nothing. Since this singularity, if it were infinite and intelligent, would be a god.
Damn it.
Where is the nothing in all of that? You say that atheists would have to agree with the idea of everything coming from nothing, but you haven't even hinted at any notion of nothing. If everything came from a singularity, then it didn't come from nothing. It came from a singularity. A singularity that has always existed for as long as time has existed. Where is the nothing that you are insisting atheists think everything sprang from? And why do you keep going back to the notion of atheists thinking that the singularity was intelligent? Where are you even getting that from at all? I have never heard any atheist claim an intelligent singularity from which the Big Bang expanded.
God damn it.
Quite frankly, neither have you.
But
I actually know why he's attempting to impose a something came from nothing belief onto atheists. Because he's about to make that a cornerstone of his next point. And if he can't attribute something coming from nothing ideas to atheists, then it invalidates his entire next bit. Let's see what he says.
The problem with the universe being created by nothing, however, is that if the universe came from nothing, Why do we have such order? Asserting that nothing could create everything that we see around us also goes against the law of conservation of mass, which claims that matter is not created or destroyed.
I would agree. The idea of something coming from nothing is silly. It does go against established science. So it's a good thing for me that atheists don't believe that shit. I think, and the Big Bang model shows, that all the energy that would become all the matter in the universe always existed.
Suck my fucking dick.
So it's entirely in keeping with the law of conservation of mass. Matter wasn't created, only changed from the form it existed in at the moment of the Big Bang, which was primordial energy, into all the matter and energy that we see around us now. Totally in keeping with scientific principles. So then, who is it that actually thinks something came from nothing? Who is it that believes that all the matter of the universe was created ex nihilo, out of nothing, in defiance of the law of conservation of mass that you yourself just put on the screen?
Suck my
That's right.
dick.
That is a Christian belief. Among many other religions as well, but since this fellow is a Christian, it's apropos to bring it up here. The Christian position is that God magicked all of the physical world into existence from nothing.
You goddamn bitch.
Not that God rearranged existing matter in order to make the universe. Not that he used his divine energy and turned that energy into all matter in the universe. But that God literally spoke the universe into existence. That the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible.
God.
Hebrews 11:3. So, it's Christians who believe everything came from nothing. Atheists typically don't believe that, even though they could, so long as they don't think that a God was behind it. But Big Bang cosmology, which is what you've been going after thus far, certainly does not posit anything coming from nothing. And atheists like myself, who accept the Big Bang model, aren't violating the laws of conservation of mass, unlike literally all creationists.
Evolution is so often deemed scientific, but it actually goes against the own scientific principles that have been gathered by people throughout time.
I honestly thought he was jumping to a different point here and was going to pivot to arguing against evolution. But no. This is the last part of what he's been talking about thus far. His insistence that believing everything coming from nothing violates the law of conservation of mass then slipped into insisting that that means evolution violates scientific principles. What? What does the Big Bang have to do with the diversification of life on this planet over time? What does energy becoming matter have to do with the change in allele frequencies within a biological population? How does anything that you've said thus far have anything to do with evolution? Well, it doesn't. He might think it does, but he doesn't bother to explain himself. So, as the hitch slap goes, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So, moving on.
Another common objection is people say, well, doesn't God have to have a creator? And he doesn't, because this is why. Time, space, and matter were all created, and there has to be something beyond time, space, and matter to create all things in the first place.
You're using loaded language that leads to your conclusion. By saying time, space, and matter were created, that leads to the idea of a creator. The language itself draws one inevitably towards the notion that you want them to get to. The notion of intentionality, of intelligent design. It would be more accurate to say that time, space, and matter formed. Saying it that way doesn't imply it was done with intelligence or intentionality. This also removes the insistence that time, space, and matter had to occur as the result of some cause that is outside of time, space, and matter. Because if we're talking about a primordial singularity, making a natural change in state to the Big Bang expansion, which then caused time, space, and matter to form as a natural occurrence, then there isn't anything outside of that singularity that is required to do anything. This is why the idea of a creator God doing anything in regards to the formation of the universe is a less likely scenario, as it is a clear violation of Occam's razor. Occam's razor states that one should not increase beyond reason the number of entities required to explain anything. All things being equal, the simplest solution is often the best one. Now, the naturalistic Big Bang model is the simplest solution. The primordial singularity was unstable, and so made a natural change in state to the rapid expansion that we call the Big Bang. The Christian notion unnecessarily multiplies entities, creating an infinitely complex and wholly unnecessary entity in God to cause the expansion that could have just been a natural occurrence. Now, as to why atheists saying "who created God" is a common retort to Christian apologetics, it's because of a factor that you failed to mention. It is often the claim by Christians and religious apologists in general that the universe could not have formed naturally because of its complexity. This is the teleological argument. Put simply, it's the idea that the world has order, regularity, and purpose, that the complexity of the universe is evidence of design, thus requires a designer, i.e. God. This is where the "then who created God" retort comes in. Because if complexity requires design, then surely the more complex something is, the more this is evidence that that thing was designed with intentionality. Well, the idea of the Christian God is that it is an infinitely more complex thing than the universe that it created. Thus, this must mean that the God was designed with intentionality by some kind of super God. Look, it's not that atheists actually think that your God exists and was created by a super God. It's we're trying to make you see the flaw in your own argument. If you're saying that something very complex can exist uncreated without intentionality, like your God, then why can't the universe itself, in all its complexity, exist uncreated without intentionality? If you can special plead that your God, complex as it is, doesn't need to be intelligently designed, then why can't we insist that the universe, complex as it is, doesn't need to be intelligently designed? Well, because it's complex, and complexity demands design. Then your complex God demands design. Nuh-uh. Uh-huh.
Now a Christian would say that the original first beginning, the start of everything, in the beginning and the end, would be God. But an atheist would have to default to nothing being the beginning and the end.
It's a rookie mistake. Gosh.
You goddamn son of a bitch.
Nope.
You goddamn son of a bitch.
Universe always existed for as long as time has existed. There's no such thing as nothing. And even after the heat death of the universe, when the universe reaches a state of thermodynamic equilibrium, the universe will still exist.
In fact, there is enough evidence to prove that God has to exist and evolution cannot be true.
Those are two completely separate things. God existing and evolution happening are not mutually exclusive. Hell, the majority of Americans, including the majority of those in whatever denomination of Christianity you count yourself among, accept the reality of evolution. Even though they certainly believe in God, they just think that God directed evolution. Again, why are you bringing up evolution out of nowhere? Why are you bringing up the diversification of life when we've been discussing the formation of the universe? Tell me you understand that these things are completely unrelated. Well, not to keep you in suspense, he isn't going to tell me that. In fact, this is where all discussion of cosmology, evolution, physics, or science in general stops. Because now, he pivots completely to why atheists hate God so much. I'll spare you some of it because we've heard it all before. Things like atheists don't want accountability, even though atheists are still fully accountable in this life by way of things like laws, cultural norms, social contracts, evolutionarily developed pro-social behaviors, societal frameworks, and our own personal moral systems. But yeah, not fearing God, tossing us into hell for choosing the wrong religious club, which is really the only surefire way to get sent to hell in Christianity, is absolute carte blanche for the atheist. We also have things like all atheists are wicked, suppressing truth in their unrighteousness, blah, blah, blah. Get on to something worth responding to.
But let me prove that the reason is because people hate God. We can also intuitively know that God is serious about sin by the fact that people die.
Or people die from a variety of natural means. The natural process of aging causes your cells and bodily functions and systems to degrade over time, until they become so prone to disease and maladies that they cease to function altogether. Or disease occurring that is severe enough to overcome even young and healthy bodily systems.
Dick sucker.
Or injury catastrophic enough to cause our biological systems to be unable to sustain ourselves. All of these things are exactly what you would expect in a universe without a God. To posit that people dying is a reason to believe that God is serious about sin requires the pre-assumption that God exists. And in the Christian belief system, that God is supposed to be all-powerful and all-loving. And yet, all the horrible, painful, and traumatic deaths that we see around us every day still occur. How could this be with an all-powerful, all-loving God? Well, here's a post hoc rationalization that allows those who already believe in that all-powerful, all-loving God to continue to do so in the face of what would seem to be evidence to the contrary.
Here's why. The Bible says in Romans 1:20, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." It also says in Romans 6:23 that the wages of sin is death.
Don't you see? It still makes total sense that an all-powerful, all-loving God exists, even though so many people die horribly. It's our fault, right? It's our sin that's the cause of all that. It's because of the fall. How wicked we all are. That's why cancer is a thing. That's why malaria ravages hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Insects, whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why?
These things all exist not because God isn't real, or whatever God might exist isn't powerful enough to stop it, or isn't loving enough to want to stop it, but because of us. It's what we did and what we do that all that suffering and death exists. I mean, it strikes me a bit like the woman who stands there with a black eye and says her husband really does love her. She must have just made him mad by not bringing him his Jack and Coke fast enough when he got home. But post hoc rationalization aside, this is still all predicated on the starting assumption that God exists. If one starts with no such notion, then death existing is completely in keeping with what one would expect in a naturalistic world. See, we atheists don't have to account for suffering and death. It makes sense those things exist in a world with no God. You are the ones scrambling to make sense of it, and the only way you can do so is to insist, through your black eyes and broken teeth, that the being that you believe blackened your eye and broke your teeth really loves you, and it was your fault that he beat you so bad. I mean, for the love of algorithmo, seek help.
Very quickly, I would also like to address a common argument that people say against Christians that use the Bible to prove the Bible. I am proving the Bible with the Bible as much as you could prove that the president lives in the White House by looking inside the White House. You can see that the Bible's true about what it says about itself because it actually says things that we can look at outside the world and see if the world attests to the Bible.
Okay.
Goddamn fucking
well, there's
Christ.
The Oval Office of the White House, and there's President Biden. One of many pictures of him in the White House where he lives. Proof positive. We look in the White House and we see proof of President Biden living there. Now, opening up the Bible and going to the passage that you just quoted a minute ago, Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. You know, I'm not seeing any proof in the Bible that this passage...
Stupid fucker. Now,
evolution has been the catalyst of what we have seen happen in culture, and not only does it have extreme implications, but evolution will further the deteriorization of America and the rest of the world.
Come on, you slant-eyed slut.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Come on, you whore. God damn it.
Welcome back, everyone, to Bridge the Divide, where I examine irrational beliefs, the irrational behaviors that often follow, and how we, with education, rationality, and reason, can bridge the societal divides they create. Today, we're going to take a look at a video from over on the channel Repent and Believe, which is run by two members of the Reformed Baptist Church of Louisville, Kentucky, Jeremy and Dimitri. Now, for some quick clarification on who these particular Baptists are and how they differentiate from other Baptists, they hold specifically to the 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith, also known as the Second London Baptist Confession of Faith, which itself is distinguished from the 1644 London Baptist Confession of Faith. The 1689 BCOF subscribes to a Calvinistic theory of salvation and a covenantal systematic theology, but with some differences from the Westminsterian confession utilized by the Presbyterians. Despite the differences, though, this particular sect of Baptists still holds to the usual misogynistic, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-intellectualism tropes, as well as a few culty things like forbidding interfaith marriages and prayers for the dead. Now, in this video, Dimitri takes a hard swing at atheists by asserting that atheism in and of itself is somehow a fraud. And while it seems the title of his video demonstrates that he doesn't really understand what atheism actually is, or even what the term fraud means, or what context it should be used in, I do have to point out that that amazing content creator, The Skeptic, actually covered this video a few months ago, and Dimitri, in his response to that, he explains that what he meant by using the term fraud was that he thinks that atheism is an anti-theistic movement that is predicated upon a message of deception. So all that being said, let's dive into this video and see if Dimitri can actually back up his assertions regarding what he thinks atheism is.
Most atheists hold to some form of biological evolution. Many Big Bang models would assert the universe is billions of years old and that all came together from one singularity, after which it started evolving over time.
What the hell is he talking about?
No.
He's beating out that whore!
Right there from the start, Dimitri. Within the first 15 seconds of your video, you referenced three major subjects: atheism, cosmology, and evolution. The major issue here is that you presented these three subjects as if any of them have anything at all to do with one another. Firstly, atheism refers to nothing more than a person not believing in the existence of a god or gods. Evolution, or the modern synthesis, which is a merging of the Darwin and Mendel traditions, is only concerned with the diversification of life by means of natural selection. And cosmology, which is a sub-branch of astronomy, is only concerned with the study of the observable universe and its origin, structures, and dynamics. Secondly, the truth or non-truth of any one of these fields in no way informs the truth or non-truth of any of the other fields, as they are not mutually exclusive. Everything we know about evolution and cosmology could be 100% absolutely correct, and that would not logically entail that a creating godlike entity does not exist. And the same goes if we were completely wrong about evolution and cosmology. It would say nothing as to the existence or non-existence of this proposed being. When you lump these three independent subjects together like this, Dimitri, you ignorantly or dishonestly frame atheism as something that is foundationally predicated upon the current models of understanding of cosmology and evolution being true, which it is decidedly not. The justification for being an atheist is that the belief in the existence of a god or gods is not justified. As such, a belief is founded upon the commission of a number of logical fallacies and is therefore irrational. And a major issue that you seem to be ignoring, Dimitri, is that there is no logical contradiction posed by the existence of a creating godlike entity and what we observe in cosmology and evolution being the means by which this entity created the universe and created and diversified life on this planet. All that particular scenario would entail is that what is asserted in your particular holy book doesn't follow, which is also a logically possible scenario. But that's your issue to reconcile, not ours. That many atheists, and Christians I might add, hold to our current models of evolution and cosmology being true is not due to a rejection of Christianity. It's because these individuals are being intellectually intellectually honest and recognizing that that's the direction the evidence is going, and these individuals generally hold to a stricter and more consistent epistemology than your garden variety theist does. And lastly, Dimitri, you seem to lack a fundamental understanding of what exactly you're talking about here because you've completely misrepresented what a singularity is. For one, the term singularity is not referring to a physical thing that exists in the cosmos, and that's because the term singularity is a mathematical expression that refers to a point in space-time that is so intensely hot and dense that all the mathematical values of that point are, for all intents and purposes, essentially infinite. But no one is stating that a physical object with infinite mass exists in the universe, as the relativistic implications of that object actually existing would be catastrophic for the entire universe. And I really don't know a better way to put this. Singularities don't evolve. I honestly don't know, Dimitri, what possessed you to make this profoundly ridiculous statement. At this point, it's fairly obvious that your stance of anti-intellectualism is interfering quite badly with your ability to formulate a coherent position. Or in other words, you actually need to learn about these things before you try and talk about them, because you're not doing yourself or your faith any favors by just regurgitating the crap that some other ignorant apologist convinced you of.
I will be logically proving why this cannot be the case, and I will also be providing reasons why that even though there's enough evidence that God exists, people still reject him anyway.
Spit.
So by that implication, you're not only going to demonstrate that your God exists, but also that your God is logically incompatible with cosmology and evolution, despite the mountains of evidence and predictive models that demonstrate the truth of those fields, and that you're going to demonstrate, presumably with evidence, that our current cosmological and evolutionary models are completely incorrect. And on top of that, you're going to demonstrate how you know that all atheists, and presumably all other non-Christian faiths, are all just lying to themselves about their own mental states. I won't lie to you, Dimitri, but that is a Bloodborne level challenge that you've set for yourself.
God fucking damn it. Holy Ghost.
But hey, the burden's on you, bud, so let's see what you've got for us.
Firstly, claiming that the universe came from a singularity is illogical.
Well, of course it's illogical, Dimitri, because that is not what the cosmological model is stating. The singularity that is referred to in cosmology stands as a mathematical expression of the origin point of observability for our universe. Essentially, it's a term that is used to expression of the origin point of observability for our universe. Essentially, it's a term that is used to describe...
Suck my dick.
Grabs a man,
now fuck him and bring that whore out here,
divine revelation.
black ass in check.
Throughout the New Testament and in other Jewish works, angelic and divine beings are often described as being in white and appearing at random to deliver divine revelation. They can also be described as appearing as men. So it is hardly a problem to suggest Marcus claiming an angel spoke to the women who appeared as a man in a white robe. Both Matthew and John also describe the angels as being dressed in white.
Yeah, I would actually wholeheartedly agree with this one. Even as an atheist, if I read about women going to the tomb and seeing a man who was dressed in white and made proclamations about Jesus, I would pretty much assume they were talking about an angel. So, I guess this might be someone's idea of a contradiction, but I don't really care about it, and we're still very much at the surface level of easy contradictions.
Would you please
Skeptics also lives in Matthew, contradicts the other Gospels, in where one of the angels was sitting. The other three suggest the angels were inside the tomb, but Matthew 28:2 says one angel sat on a stone outside of the tomb. However, Matthew might also imply the angel moved, and that time had passed from when the stone had rolled away to when the women arrived.
Okay, so here we finally start approaching some of the actual problematic stuff, which is where the angels were when the women spoke to them. According to inspiring philosophy, the problem is that Matthew depicts an angel sitting outside on a tombstone, where all the other Gospels depict the angel being inside. Angel or angels being inside.
Suck my
His solution?
dick.
Maybe Matthew says that the angel was on the tombstone, and it's implied that he later went into the tomb before speaking to the women, and he just doesn't say it. I guess there's absolutely nothing in Matthew that suggests this. Or actually, maybe there is, because inspiring philosophy has a suggestion for why Matthew thought that's the case. So let's take a look at that.
He also says the angel stated, "Come, see the place where he lay." which implies the angels moved, and one was speaking from inside the empty tomb.
So that was it, huh? Honestly, I think he would have been better just leaving this at pure speculation, because this sounds even more desperate than just, I don't know, maybe it started outside and went inside and Matthew didn't tell us.
Oh, I just fucked up.
Because the angel sitting out at the entrance of the tomb and saying, come in and see where he lay, makes perfect logical sense, right?
He could put my
I've been to a ton of
black
Easter
ass
plays, and a lot of them do depict just that. It shows the angel outside the tomb saying, and sometimes singing, come see where he lay, Jesus is risen, whatever. Even in real life. How many parents have stood at the door of the house saying, hey kids, come in. You don't need to be inside a structure to tell somebody to come into it. So, I don't know. More than if he had just purely speculated and said, maybe the angel moved and Matthew didn't tell us. This sounds like inspiring philosophy is fishing really hard for the right answer. That he's just really picking through semantics and trying to come up with something that supports his cause. Maybe there's something in the original language that supports this that I'm not aware of. I'm not seeing that, but this just sounds kind of desperate and pathetic. Now, there is a ton more to this. I've barely scratched the surface, but the problem is these contradictions with the angels and their locations start to tie into a lot of other things, so I want to wait and kind of reveal that all by itself. But keep in mind, there are a couple questions here. Does this story plausibly read as if the angel had started outside and gone inside, or is this just something you're reading between the lines because you want it to be there?
Come on, you dick
and then
sucker.
also, are there, I don't know, maybe a lot more damning issues with these stories that inspiring philosophy hasn't even touched on? When he just deals with was the angel inside or outside the tomb, is he still kind of sitting in easy territory? He's approaching the actual problem, but there are a lot more irreconcilable things there that we haven't touched on and he's not even going to approach. So, little teaser that there's more coming.
Damn it.
Another objection is Luke says the angels were standing, but John and Mark say they were sitting. But the Greek word can be translated to mean appear or to be present. It does not necessarily mean to stand.
Yeah, I actually looked this up and it's true. Like Inspiring Philosophy said, the word translated as stood beside them does not necessarily mean that they were standing up. It just means that they approached them or were present. I see it more often being referred to as approaching or accosting or coming upon someone, not just already being there. But yeah, in the most technical sense, it doesn't mean that they were standing, where another verse said that they were sitting. So that itself is not a contradiction. However, we are still residing in really easy soft pitch territory. I don't know that a lot of people point to this, and I definitely don't consider it one of the most damning contradictions.
Skeptics will also note what the angel says to the women is different in each of the synoptics. But within the ancient cultural context, exact wording was not necessary, and authors were expected to paraphrase and summarize to help readers better understand what was happening.
This is another one I feel is just pretty inconsequential. Do I personally think an all-powerful God presenting something as his inerrant word would give direct quotes in the same words across different tellings of the same thing? Sure, probably, but I'm not going to harp on the fact that different stories paraphrase what people said in different words, even if it's used in direct quotes, as some big contradiction. If the substance of what they said were dramatically different, that'd be a different story, but this is another kind of so what thing for me.
So given the ancient cultural context, the Gospel authors were well within reason to paraphrase and summarize what the angel had said to the women. Demanding exact wording is forcing our cultural context onto the ancient world. They were more concerned with passing on meaning, as that was more important in the long run.
Now this is incredibly interesting, and we're going to see apologists go pretty far down this "the Bible doesn't always have to get everything exactly right" rabbit hole pretty soon. Now yeah, sure, I get it. People in ancient times wrote for different purposes in different styles than people today. So maybe we should kind of understand if first century Christians were a little loosey-goosey with the facts when passing on their stories. Fine. But I don't think this is usually what most Christians are trying to get us to believe, at least not biblical literalists. They're trying to argue that the Bible is the absolute correct, totally inerrant word of God. That every word is as true as if God spoke it himself. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, and I'd say most literalists to some extent. So when they present this idea, and then we bring up contradictions to argue that's not true, we're not forcing our cultural context onto the ancient world. Biblical literalists are claiming the Bible accomplishes things far beyond the standards of typical ancient writing, and we're trying to counter that. And so I find it more than a little irritating when they turn around and act like we're just having unrealistic expectations of humans in the ancient world. They are setting the bar here, and then when we address it, they're saying, well, what are you doing? You're picking on ancient people. We're not. We're addressing the standards of absolute God-inspired literal texts that you have introduced into the conversation. So here's my message to apologists. If you want to argue that the Bible is the perfect, inerrant Word of God, that every word's just totally true, then fine. But stick with that, even when we bring up contradictions. Or if, on the other hand, you're one of those ones who wants to think that the Bible is often metaphorical, that it gets things wrong here and there, maybe it's a little inspired, maybe God gave some people ideas, maybe there are some core teachings in there, but it's, not literally true, then stick with that. But stick with that whether you're in a conversation with us or whether you're just speaking to your Christian audiences in general. Don't switch back and forth depending on what's most convenient. And if you want to do that, don't harp on us as if we have unrealistic expectations of people in the ancient world. That's just super obnoxious. Anyway, next I want to look at this video by somebody I called a rando Catholic before on my live streams at Anza. Turns out he's actually not so much. He regularly appears on Cameron Bertuzzi's live stream, so whatever that tells you about him. In this video, he's going to address a different topic, which is whether the tombstone was open or closed when the women arrived.
Matthew 28:2 and Luke 24:2. They saw the tomb. I think one verse says that the tomb was open and one verse says the tomb was closed. And I'm not sure what the deal is with that.
The caller seems to have a loose grasp of the details, but this is really a pretty straightforward one. Mark, Luke, and John all say that the women, or woman in the case of John, saw the tombstone already rolled away when they showed up. Matthew, on the other hand, shows the women arriving and then says that an angel came down and rolled the tomb away. These seem like very straightforward, irreconcilable contradiction. But let's see what he does with it.
So one of the things, and this is something we commonly discuss, the ancients did not write history the way that we do. We insist today on a very videotape-like presentation. Exactly what you would have seen in exactly chronological order if you were there with a video camera.
Yeah, and there's another word for your story being the same as if you recorded it with a video camera. And that's accuracy. Keep this in mind as we move on. Keeping the chronological order of events in your story straight is not an arbitrary choice. It's an aspect of having your facts straight.
The ancients did not do that. They sometimes did that, but they weren't required to. And one of the freedoms they had was the ability to rearrange events to make the meaning clearer.
Yeah, they didn't always do that. But let's remain abundantly clear that when they didn't, a certain amount of factuality was lost. Now, this doesn't mean I have a low regard for them as people or as authors. Their writing was a product of its time. So if there was an expectation that they were to put thematic or ideological focus above the facts, or otherwise there was just a low regard for factual accuracy,
come on, dick sucker.
That's fine. I don't put it on them. They were doing what they were expected to do, and their writing does have a certain cultural value. It does convey certain things. So respect those authors as people and intellectuals of their time. Appreciate their writing for what it was. You can do all this while still managing your expectations for factuality in their writing. You can recognize that something has since been gained when we developed methodology and expectations for more precise factuality in our accounts. So while ancient accounts aren't like stupid or worthless or anything, there are some downsides to how they told their stories, and there are definitely pitfalls to taking them as overly factual. So we need to be on guard against using this observation of ancient genres to, 1, minimize the fact that there is some objective value to factuality, including chronological accuracy, and 2, conflate questions about whether the Bible is inerrant with general disrespect for ancient authors. Now, to his last point, can rearranging events in a story make an author's meaning clear? Sure. It can draw attention to certain themes or make the connection between certain events clearer. But you can do this while still being clear about when everything happened, right? Like if I were to say I walked into my boss's office and suggested that we should cancel afternoon meetings, the day before my coworker had walked in and suggested the same thing, I'm telling those two things one after the other to make my point clear, but I gave some pretty clear prompts that showed when what happened compared to the other, right? You're not going to hear that story and think that I walked in and then my coworker did just because the other one came second. If I were to say, I walked into my boss's office and suggested we should cancel afternoon meetings, my coworker walked in and suggested that they should cancel afternoon meetings, that would sound like I was saying one came after the other, right? Or at the very least, it would be ambiguous and create confusion. So you can do things for literary focus or emphasis while still keeping your facts straight. While still making it very clear what the chronology was. Now, maybe some cultures or genres find it appropriate to rearrange events while being ambiguous about the chronology. But if they do, we should be clear about a few things. One, it's not necessary to do this to make a thematic point. Two, doing this sacrifices accuracy if you're trying to give a non-fictional account. And three, if the Bible rearranges chronology or makes it unclear,
this is
boring! The question of whether it's an error or how clearly inerrant it is. Now, Jimmy spends a lot of time talking about how Matthew and Mark...
Fuck up.
The entire picture of life, where either they get to a point of incredible safety or unsafety. What are you finding in their conversations?
By far and large, the majority of the ex-pastors that I engage with, it's definitely the extreme unsafety mark that tends to push them over the edge. Because you do sacrifice a lot in ministry. And you tend to do it graciously and gracefully all the way up until the end. And for a lot of them, it's getting to that point of no longer feeling safe within their own thoughts, no longer feeling safe with their members anymore, no longer feeling safe with their families, and that finally puts them in a place where they can just kind of be honest. And then now, once they're at that point, the biggest common thing is they all seem to be really happy, primarily because, and I don't know if it's because of because of the type of work we do, but it's once we're on the other side, it's a relief. Because it's like, it's almost like living your whole life trying to push a rock up the mountain, thinking those are your only options. And then the moment you realize that, oh no, okay, this God likely isn't real, then you can just let that fucking rock go. And so like, really like, the majority of my ex-pastor friends now that I get to engage, they feel incredibly liberated. The tinge of frustration that they feel is, what do I do now? Yeah. I've spent my whole life modeling myself to be this type of person, and it's like, what do I do with that now? And it's not easy. I know for me that was the most terrifying thing. Is like being a pastor for 20 years is a black hole on your resume, and in the rest of the world. And so it was terrifying, but a lot of them are making waves, and it is because of things like the Clergy Project. And also because we are becoming a little bit more of a progressive society where people can see that pastors aren't just preachers and public speakers, but they're event managers, they're community organizers. So if they can learn how to translate those things, which is typically what I kind of help do, then they can find space, but it is difficult, it is scary, and it's that double-sided coin. You're terrified and liberated at the same time. It's like being dropped off in the wilderness after being in slavery. You're happy to be free, but it's like, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah, there's different types of pastors, and I've talked with my friends before about which labels they like to use: pastor, preacher, minister, reverend, etc. And some of them are more picky than others. But I look at it just for ease. There's probably more categories than this, but I would put most of the pastors and preachers in three categories. The first category is people helpers. These are people who genuinely just want to help other people. Yeah. Then there's the power hungry, who need to be, I gotta be the dude in the pulpit, I gotta be the one saying it, because if I was the one sitting out here and somebody else is telling me what to do, I know I feel convicted and irritated, and I need that power stroke. And then the third category is just the performative, and they can come from a lot of different directives. And I think that while I was a sincere believer at the time, I think if I had gone into ministry at the time, it would have been more performative because I don't get me wrong, I have a session with learning and I would like to help people, but I'm not driven to be the compassionate people helper person, and I don't give a shit about being the person in charge. What I care about is me, the people close to me, the world, and as my vision begins to branch out from me out, there's a performance aspect to it where that was all I knew. And for members of the Clergy Project, who, as we both touched on, somebody's in the ministry for 20 years and finds out, I don't believe anymore. Not only do I not believe anymore, but I think this is problematic and harmful. But what do I do? It's not just you're right, it's a black hole in your resume, but it's even if you included that on your resume, it would be, okay, what skills do you take to a new job? Well, you might be able to do some managerial stuff, but I know a lot of pastors where the church has their own treasurer and secretary and all that stuff, and they're downloading sermons off the internet, and just putting them forward. Now, I would imagine people are having AI just write their sermons for them. It wouldn't surprise me at all to find that there are pastors in the pulpit right now who on Saturday night put a cue into ChatGPT and have it spit out a 25-minute sermon so that they can, praise Jesus, bless you all, thank you all so much for coming here. I want to talk today about, and when you watch videos on YouTube that are written by AI and they're read by AI,
stupid! I'm fixing to ear you're right here.
My favorite is listening to pastors who did not write their fucking sermon because they can't pronounce the stuff that's in it, and there's no way you're going to be questioned on it.
Well, I was actually a ghostwriter for preachers for a while, and so I did write other preachers' sermons, and that was one thing that used to aggravate the hell out of me, is that, like, man, if you're gonna use my sermon, at least get the words right. But you see it clearly that I'm like, dude, you could have just simply Googled the word. Google has the pronunciation right there for you.
There's another thing, everybody's got a different rhythm and different pacing. AI's getting Jimmy Smith sent me a message that was an AI script that he wrote, that he had the AI generate his voice. You almost can't tell. It sounds exactly like him, and it's adding breathing, and it's adding spacing. It's getting to the point where we do a call-in show here. We're going to get to calls here in just a minute. But someday we're not going to have any good reason to believe that the person that we're talking to on the phone is real.
For sure.
There's going to be a real-time, voice-generated AI stuff. And I just wonder, how do you... I don't know what we could possibly do to fix that. I have no way of knowing. Like, generally, there are people who call just to troll right now. And I'm okay with it. A long time ago, somebody said, hey, don't you know that person that keeps calling you is they're a troll, they don't really believe that? And I'm like, no. Because I can't read minds, and I think it would be wrong and rude for me to pretend that I can. Don't get me wrong, I can pick up on some things when people are making it more obvious. But if I can't, I only am able to work with the information I have. And so as long as the person on the other end of the phone is bringing up salient points to either everyone can learn from, or that we can correct so that everybody can learn from the correction, I really don't care if they're a troll or AI or anything else, because the important thing for me is to get better information out. And it doesn't matter whether it's from AI or a troll. Some jackass who wants to call in and be like, oh, you're gay, homie. Cool, thanks so much for showing me the love of Christ there.
Right. I get that with my beard a lot.
Yeah. The process of... I wouldn't even call it deconversion, or at least I didn't look at it as deconversion when I found my way out. It was just... I remember one day I was riding home from work with my roommate, and I said, I think I'm kind of agnostic now. And he goes, oh, cool. And just kept driving. And it was that moment stuck with me, because it was the first time I dared tell anybody that I probably don't believe in God. And I knew it was going to be safe telling my roommate, because he'd been an atheist for years. And the fact that there was nothing. There was no surprise, no judgment, no... Really? No, we don't even need to discuss it. It was just okay, cool.
Wow.
And that was huge. Oh, evidently my Google device thinks I'm asking it to find a video or something.
Hey Google, stop.
What the heck is that? Anyway, when you found your way out, what type of community did you have left? Because the communities that we try to build as pastors or as Christians, we're doing that a little bit in the secular community, but we're at a huge disadvantage, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, and a lot of energy and resources. And so many atheists just find themselves alone. What kind of support network have you had over the last 10 years after finding your way out and working out as an atheist?
For the past 10 years, my support network has been my wife and my kids. And literally that's where that circle ends. For the past 10 years, I had to wrestle with a lot of family dynamics of realizing that, like, yikes, my family really doesn't like people who aren't Christian. You know, they have no problem with people who don't live like Christians. But the moment you no longer have the label, it's a problem. And so literally there was no community support system for me or my family until we started building it. And just to be clear, we live in Alabama, so that does make things a little harder. but it definitely it pushed my passion. I often tell people that one of the biggest things that the past 10 years have taught me is what it feels like to feel like there's something wrong with you just being you. And that you have to hide you to make other people comfortable, which is what I did for the past 10 years. And it gave me an extreme amount of compassion for the LGBTQIA plus community, because I realized, like, that's a horrible feeling, to feel like that every day you have to pretend to be something that you're not. And that literally I had people who I had told that I was not a believer anymore. And because they just really wanted me to be, they would just treat it like it was a fad, or treat it like it would go away. Anytime we'd have family events, they'd try to make me pray over the food because, hey, you're the former pastor. It was an incredibly isolating and dehumanizing experience. And it was really that kind of decided, because my past 10 years, I spent silent as an atheist. I didn't talk about it outside of close friends and families. I didn't talk about it on my YouTube. I even still accepted preaching events and just tried to taper my messages. But I finally came out on the other end because I realized, like, it was a killer. It was a killer for me. My network had died. My community had died. And I'm like, what am I holding on to for? What am I holding on for now? And so it was finally at the beginning of this year, I just like, fuck it, I'm just going to start talking about things that are important to me, because that's really the only way I'm going to find community. And that was the thing for me, is that you don't get community if you don't feel safe. And that's what a lot of people who step away from the faith are wrestling with. It's even though there's community out there. Someone asked me a few months ago, like, why didn't you go to the clergy project? And it was a valid question, and the truth of the matter was I just didn't feel safe. Even though I knew that I was an atheist, and I knew that I was going to walk this walk, I didn't want my name to show up on the website one day. You know, or I didn't want to be in an interview someday and somebody saw it. So it was incredibly terrifying. And it took me 10 years to finally realize, like, hey, if you want community, you're going to have to be active in building community and connecting. But yeah, it was just my wife and my kids. That was my support system for a decade.
Well, I tell you, we'll have to do this again for sure, because I can sit here and talk this everything religious with you for hours and hours. But we've got callers waiting in. It's a call-in show, so let me remind people, if you're not familiar with the Clergy Project, you can Google. But the Clergy Project was founded in part by Daniel Dennett, Linda Lascola, Dan Parker, and Richard Dawkins as a way of allowing people who are current or former clergy, who no longer believe to interact anonymously. They don't all stay anonymous. As I mentioned, my friend Jerry Witt was the first one to kind of shed that anonymity and come out public and wrote a book, Hope After Faith. But it's a great resource, and it is incredibly, to my knowledge, it's incredibly safe and supportive. One of the nice things is that even though I'm not former clergy and I'm not a part of the Clergy Project, if you join the Clergy Project, you can reach out to others and say, I'd really like to talk to so-and-so. And there are a number of counselors both in the project and outside of the project. And so I've had several different people who joined the Clergy Project to get, and they're just like, hey, could somebody connect me with Matt? And then we end up having a bunch of conversations. Some of them become my friends, but this is now tied in with, Recovery for Religious Psychotherapy Project and all sorts of resources, so that if you are someone who is a member of the clergy and you no longer believe, you have options to find your way out that can be safe. On that note, we have a number of callers, including some Theist callers. And let's, if you're ready, and by the way, Durante, you jump in whenever the hell you want. You talk over me, shut me down, whatever. Because I get to do this all the damn time. So.
Christ, goddamn Holy Ghost, fuck. Christ, fuck. Christ, fuck.
Hi. Thank you. How are you guys? Great.
In unison.
All right. Well, something that just something what the last caller said, or at least what you were
Sure.
saying during the last caller, that
Christ, goddamn buck.
how to demonstrate its morality, how morality is consistent with the mind and will of God.
Well, what I asked was how they can demonstrate what God, how we can know what God thinks about a moral issue.
Right. Yeah. I think that was kind of an interesting way of
stupid bitch.
I wouldn't say that morality would be, or I wouldn't say that morality with the mind and will of God.
I fucked his hole.
Whatever is moral.
Christ, fuck.
That would be more. I feel like that would be more of an appropriate way to.
Okay.
So Brady, for clarity,
insolent bastard.
Morality is the mind and will of God. The mind and will of God is consistent with morality. Morality is consistent with the mind and will of God. Those
You
things
absent-minded bitch. You absent-minded fucker.
Yeah.
Okay, last game. Win, lose, draw, glitch, battle, board, one piece of fucking me, man.
How can we know? How can we know?
Suck my fucking slut. Suck my dick. Start the next game, you slut. From China. Oh, you suck my dick, bitch.
Okay.
If you have direct and personal revelation from God, how does that help me understand what God's will
suck
and mind
my
are?
Dick, bitch.
I would say
you suck my dick.
That comes down to a matter
What the fuck is this stupid motherfucker doing here? That fucking whore. He bring out that whore.
How do I put
Can you speak a little louder, Brady? You're a little quiet for me.
Son of a bitch, dude.
Yeah, sorry. I think you're off speakerphone here.
Oh, much better. Much better.
Awesome. So, I think that would come down to a matter of trust.
Suck my dick, bitch.
Hang on. If the only way we can know is direct personal revelation, then a direct personal revelation to you is by definition no good to any of the rest of us. As Hume pointed out, revelation is first person, and to everybody else it's hearsay. So if God reveals something to you and doesn't reveal it to me, how can I then know what God thinks?
You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch.
Still there?
You suck my dick, bitch.
Yeah.
Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my slut.
I think it would have to be through faith.
I'll chase that fucking whore to kingdom come.
Understand faith. Faith is very much an action word. So if they
I'll chase that fucking goddamn whore to kingdom motherfucking come, you son of a bitch.
Depending on for your source, right? Tells you how they did it.
Now fucking move that whore right here.
You said the only way we can know is personal revelation from God. If God doesn't reveal something to me, you're saying that I can know by personal revelation from God or by trusting someone who claims they have personal revelation?
Yes. So I mean,
how do I tell whether somebody has had a personal revelation, and why won't God just reveal it to me?
Suck my dick.
I think he would reveal it.
You suck my dick, bitch.
He hasn't.
Suck my dick. Suck my dick. Suck my dick.
I don't want to.
Suck
You
my
told me about your
dick.
experience growing up in
You suck my dick,
church, right?
bitch.
So I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to assume your past. Too much of your past.
You don't have to assume anything. I'll answer questions about my past. But the question I'm asking you is if the only way to know the mind of God is through direct revelation, then I mean the scripture says, "Let God be true and every man a liar," right?
Yeah.
So doesn't that mean that I can't trust any man to be truthful?
Yeah, I see what you mean. The scripture don't say.
Not only that, but if God will reveal something to you, and then expect me to trust what He revealed to you, then functionally that would be the same as God revealing it to me, so why doesn't God just do that?
I think He wants you to ask Him.
I have.
I think because I think you have.
Of course.
Okay. When was the last time you asked?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a long time ago. I haven't believed in many years, but I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist Christian, actively working to become a preacher who prayed to God regularly, daily, many times a day, for that His will be done and all this other stuff. But you're saying, you've said, the only way we can know is through personal revelation, and I'm like, if I haven't had a personal revelation, then clearly I cannot be held responsible for moral positions if God hasn't revealed it to me. And then when you were faced with that little loophole, then it was like, oh, well, it's not just personal revelation. You can just have faith that somebody else's personal revelation is right. But are you a Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, you're not a Catholic. Cool. Do you think that the Pope, the revelations that the Pope get are true?
Hell no.
I think they're principally true, yeah.
What a crock of shit.
So, do you accept evolution?
Now, fuck up and move this pole down here.
Much into it to decide.
Oh. Well, okay. Do you and the Pope disagree on the morality of any subject?
I don't imagine so.
Really? Okay. Well,
I don't know the Pope.
What about you and Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you think you disagree with Jehovah's Witnesses on any moral subject?
There might be some things that we disagree on, and there might be some things that we but right.
Okay. So, if you tell me you've got a revelation from God about the moral subject, and a Jehovah's Witness says something different, and the Pope says something different, how can I tell which of you three is correct?
You can't. Yeah, it would.
Let me ask another question. Because you're right there, Brady. I'm gonna help. You're knocking on the door, and I'm gonna kick it open for you. If you were God, and you wanted people to understand morality, would you privately reveal things to individuals and just leave it up to everybody else to try to figure out who you spoke to and who you didn't?
Man, this is fucked up. Man, fuck this shit.
But only because I think it's dumb.
So you would set up a system where you ran around privately revealing things to some people but not others, and you think that's a good idea?
No. What I mean is that God answers those that overwhelmingly.
Get that goddamn knot out of here, slut.
In whatever capacity their ability.
Let's assume that I have never bothered to seek God. Am I going to hell?
No.
I'm not?
No.
How do you know?
That you just never bothered to seek Him?
Yeah. I never sought God. Let's say that's the case. Am I going to hell?
I just shit in my pants.
No.
Bullshit.
Does anybody go to hell in your model? How do you know?
No.
Now fuck up and move the corner. God damn it.
Yeah, in my model, like, there are people that go to hell.
Who goes to hell?
Just anybody who has a full witness of the truth. Like a full understanding of God and who He is. Like if God was standing right there in front of them, God was standing right there in front of them, and it was undeniably.
We spit.
It was undeniable for them, and they denied it anyway. Like that would.
Only real. I just want to clarify. Only real Christians are aware of what's moral in your model.
No.
Only saved, true people that are definitely getting into heaven are aware of what's moral.
No, I would. I want to say only Christians are aware of what's moral.
Spit. With the dice.
It sounds like that's what you're saying.
With spit.
Why would you? Okay, maybe explain that.
Come on, you fucking
Matt asked how we can know what's moral.
With the
and
dice.
you said only people who've had complete, direct interaction with God or have on faith accepted that someone else did. Only that subset of people are aware of what God wants.
They'll only The lonely homeless vet to waking up underneath the blanket. Smile the cop and the graffiti on the walls. Smile the cop and the graffiti on the walls.
I'm just trying to see if I'm steel manning your model. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think we all understand morality according to our own capacity and our own knowledge. So,
well, that contradicts then your
man, you
notion that we need
stupid
to be
bitch,
aware of God
fucked
to know
up.
what.
You stupid
Or
motherfucker.
are you saying that people with a little bit of exposure, they'll know a little bit of what morality is, and people who know a lot about God, they definitely know.
You stupid motherfucker. Stupid fucker.
Is this a spectrum? Okay. So why is sort of a spectrum? So why would a Christian ever tell another Christian about God in this scenario? Or tell a non-believer about God in this scenario when ignorance is apparently bliss, and if you don't know anything about God, then you have zero moral culpability.
Stupid fucker.
And we'll be able to get into heaven.
Fucker.
Well, maybe I'll clarify it for...
Aren't you damning people just by calling in? You're damning me in math because you're telling us about God, and now we know, and now we're going to get judged.
No, I think
Move, you whore.
Because I know that God doesn't...
I'll put your goddamn black ass for Stalin. I ain't talking Joseph Stalin, you know, I'm talking about Stalin.
I do lack of understanding for... Or at least I'm very
Whoops,
confident.
I gotta go piss a bit.
Why are you confident?
I think... Well... Only because I just don't think that's principally true. But I do feel like I need to fix my argument because I do believe that in my own experience I found that personal and direct revelation is necessary to know God.
How do you know that you've had personal and direct revelation from God?
Well, I know.
How? How?
Because of just the personal experiences that I've had.
Has anyone in the history of the world, has anyone in the history of the world thought they had a revelation from God, but they were wrong about that?
Yeah, I think there are times when I've been...
We didn't start the fire!
Well, let's
tell the difference between those and the ones that are true.
How do you know?
Well, for me, it was... For me, each of the moments that each of the experiences that I've had were very profound and I don't think I want to go into that right now. I don't think that's really necessary.
Is it possible?
Unless you want it.
I'm just saying, why does the profundity of something demonstrate that it's from God?
I don't think there's a profoundity.
Well, you just said that. We asked you how you knew. The only meat that you gave any attempt to give us on the how you knew was its profundity. And so that's why I asked about it.
No, I understand. It's not purely based upon the profundity. I'm working on writing out my testimony now, and so I'm in the middle of fleshing out that story.
Suck my dick bitch.
Just as best I can, according to my own experience.
So we don't actually want to hear your story, Brady. What we're looking for is the reason why we can tell that anyone can tell, and you yourself
this
sucking
fucking fucking sucks.
And what presumably thousands or millions of other people who thought they experienced expressions from God who were wrong about that.
Right.
Every single Mormon, for example, they have to feel the burning of the bosom, right? They have to have the feeling that for them authenticates their knowledge. And every single one of them says they had that feeling. And I'm guessing at least some said really did have the feeling. And they were super sure. Super sure. As sure as possible. And you're super sure as possible. But people who are at the maximum surety can't all be correct. So what is the reason why you are not potentially self-deluded, just as other people are self-deluded?
I know I'm not.
I just eared your word.
How?
Okay, and I will clarify. Like, I am also a Mormon.
Okay.
And I have received that witness.
Okay, great.
But I know of myself because it was like it was the most amount of clarity I had gotten on this answer, and that is it possible that 100% clarity is still not divine? That you can have 100% clarity on something and it's still not actually from God? I suppose. Would you have any examples of that?
So anyone who's had an epiphany. So Einstein, had a little epiphany about nature, the relationship between matter and energy, and he did some experimentation and got some clarity there. But it doesn't even matter. You can be very clear about something that you might be going, hey, I'm super clear. Hey, I became super clear that some decisions in my life were the right decisions. Go ahead, Matt.
Right. No, he said, why could that not be from God?
I'm fucking you up.
Well,
we're not saying it can't be from God. We're saying, how do you show which one is from God?
I just eared your word. Not cutting off your right ear.
No.
So absent-minded bitch. You absent-minded. You absent-minded fucker.
Once again, we're back to how do we tell the difference?
Well, I'm first going to apologize for what I said earlier because I don't think I think partly it's a matter of trust, but I don't think it's purely based on that. But I do believe that it's purely based on personal revelation between you and God.
What's it in this sense?
I'm sorry?
You said it is a matter of clarity. It is a matter of clarity. By it, do you mean moral knowledge? By it, do you mean salvation? By it, what's it in this sense that requires revelation from God?
Yeah. Morality, or just to know God, know who God is. You need to understand those from Him.
You understand that those are different things, right?
You can certainly receive answers about morality from God, but yes, I do understand.
Move, you fucking whore.
Okay. So are you backing off that you need to know God in order to understand what's moral?